I got this thing here on. There we go, it's on now. I'm bad about switching it the wrong way. The title of the message this morning is Stay the Course. And if you will, turn to the book of Jonah. And that's in the Old Testament. Go ahead and turn to the book of Jonah. And we'll start our reading in Jonah. You know, the Bible has much to say about following God's direction and staying the course, or doing what God has asked us to do. And there's many examples throughout the Bible of what can happen when we don't follow through with doing what God's asked us to do, or stay in the course. For example, in the New Testament, when Peter stepped out of the boat and walked on water, if he had have stayed the course, if he had have kept his eyes on Jesus, don't you know, he would have walked right over to where Jesus was at. Could have wrapped his arms around him. But Peter didn't do that. We know what happened. Peter didn't stay the course. He took his eyes off of Jesus and he started to sink. And Jesus had to go over and save Peter from sinking. You know, in the Old Testament, we know the story of Lot's wife. When Lot and his family was told to leave Sodom and to not look back, and when they were leaving. But Lot's wife, she didn't listen. She went against God. She disobeyed. She did not stay the course. She didn't do what God told her to, and she looked back. And she was turned into a pillar of salt. Then we know also in the Old Testament the story of Uzzah. Uzzah was one of the men that was moving the Ark of the Covenant. And the ox stumbled and the ark started to shift. And Uzzah put his hand over there to steady it, to keep it from falling. That's just almost like a natural instinct, you know, when you're moving something. Well, they had been told nobody touches the Ark of the Covenant. Nobody. You don't put your hands on it. Even though Uzzah had good intentions, he still went against what God had told him to do. And he was struck dead that very instant while he was doing that. So let's read now one more story here in the Old Testament. And here in Jonah, in chapter 1, we'll start reading. Now the word of the Lord came unto Jonah, the son of Amittai, saying, Arise, go to Nineveh, that great city, and cry against it. For their wickedness is come up before me. In other words, the Lord said, I have seen their wicked ways. I know what's going on. But Jonah rose up to flee unto Tarshish from the presence of the Lord, and went down to Joppa. And he found a ship going to Tarshish, so he paid the fare thereof, and went down into it to go with them unto Tarshish from the presence of the Lord. I want us to see some things here in this story today, and we're going to read on a little further here in a minute. But I've got 3 points I want for us to see this morning. And the first point is, the course is set for a reason. The course is set for a reason. In our story, Jonah was asked to go to Nineveh because of their wickedness. Because these people were so wicked. Nineveh was a city of lawlessness. It's where the bad men went. Whenever they were run out of town, they went to Nineveh to live. And there were many outlaws there. And the people were very mean. And it was a place full of sin, much like Sodom and Gomorrah. And Jonah was asked to go here by God and to try to warn the people of their sin and help save those people of Nineveh. God had plans for Jonah to do well, to bring God to the people. And as scared as Jonah might have been, if he just followed through what God asked him to do, going into all this lawlessness, God would take care of it. You know, God has plans for all of his people. He has something for you to do. He has something for me to do. But you must be in God's will to know what that something is. Praying and asking, seeking it out. God has a plan for you. In Jeremiah chapter 11, verse 29, it says, For I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord, plans of peace and not evil, to do well unto the end. God has plans for you. Each and every person that is saved, God has a plan for you. He has a purpose. We all have a purpose of God under his authority. but we must stay on the course that He has set for us. Part of that course are things like coming to church, being faithful whenever the church doors are open. Things like being faithful in prayer. Things like tithes and offering. And that's a very important part of your faithfulness in the work of the Lord to keep God's work moving forward. Things like talking to others about Jesus.